At 7:42 a.m. on December 19, 1944, Technical Sergeant Frank Russo crouched behind his M1919 Browning machine gun in a frozen foxhole on Bastonia's eastern perimeter, watching 200 German infantry advance through the snow. 28 years old, Detroit mechanic, 3 months at Bastonia, 0 decorations. The Germans had sent 2 full companies to break through the American line. Russo's gun was the only thing between them and the 101st Airborne's aid station 400 yards behind him. He had 2,000 rounds of .30 caliber ammunition. Standard doctrine said his M1919 could fire 450 rounds before the barrel overheated and the gun jammed. Simple math. He could engage for maybe 90 seconds before his weapon became a useless hunk of metal. The Germans knew it too. They'd been probing American defenses for 3 days, testing response times, counting seconds between bursts, measuring how long American machine guns could sustain fire before falling silent. They understood American machine gun limitations better than most American gunners. The tactic was simple and brutal. Attack in waves, force sustained fire, wait for the jam, then overrun the position while the Americans frantically tried to cool barrels that had reached 700 degrees Fahrenheit. By December 19th, the 101st had lost 14 machine gun positions using this exact tactic. 14 crews who fired until their barrels glowed red, then died when their weapons seized up and German infantry closed the distance. Command kept sending the same orders: conserve ammunition, fire in short bursts, let the barrel cool between engagements. But German attack waves didn't pause for barrel cooling. They pressed forward while American gunners waited helplessly for metal to cool enough to function again. Russo had watched 3 positions fall in 2 days. Good men, experienced gunners who followed doctrine perfectly and died anyway. The problem wasn't the gunners. It was the gun, or more specifically, how the gun was being used. Now, watching 200 Germans advance through the morning snow, Russo was about to find out if a Detroit mechanic's improvised modification could stop an entire German company. Because in the next 48 hours, his modified M1919 would kill over 100 German soldiers, or it would fail, and he'd die like the 14 crews before him. The M1919 Browning was a remarkable weapon. Reliable, accurate, devastating firepower. John Browning had designed it in 1919. The Army had used it for 25 years. .30 caliber, belt-fed, air-cooled, rate of fire 400 to 600 rounds per minute. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, it was killing American soldiers. The problem was heat. The M1919 was designed for vehicular mounting, tanks, jeeps, armored, positions with crew support and barrel replacement capability. Those positions had multiple barrels, trained crews, time to execute proper cooling procedures. Infantry positions had none of that. 1 gunner, 1 barrel, 1 chance to hold the line. When that barrel overheated after 450 rounds, the position was finished. The math was precise and unforgiving. The M1919 fired 500 rounds per minute. At 450 rounds, the barrel reached critical temperature, 700 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, the metal expanded. The barrel warped microscopically, rounds no longer seated properly. The weapon jammed. Standard procedure said, let the barrel cool for 8 to 10 minutes. But 8 minutes in combat might as well be 8 hours. German infantry could cover 200 yards in 45 seconds. If your gun was silent for 8 minutes, you were dead. The 5th Panzer Army knew this. Their tactical doctrine specifically exploited American machine gun limitations. German infantry advanced in waves. First wave drew American fire. Americans responded with sustained bursts, burning through ammunition, heating barrels. Second wave advanced during American cooling pause. Third wave assaulted when American barrels were completely seized. The pattern worked. 14 American positions had fallen following this exact sequence. December 16th, Sergeant Eddie Morrison's position on the southern perimeter. Morrison was experienced. 2 years with the 101st. He jumped into Normandy, fought through Holland, knew the M1919 inside and out. German probe attack came at 07:15, 30 infantry. Morrison fired controlled bursts. Textbook discipline. 200 rounds over 3 minutes. Germans retreated. Morrison's barrel was hot but functional. 20 minutes later, 80 Germans attacked. Morrison opened fire. Sustained burst. The Germans kept coming. Morrison kept firing. 300 rounds, 400, 420. The barrel was glowing orange. 450 rounds. The gun jammed. Morrison tried to clear it. Couldn't. The barrel had warped. Germans were at 75 yards. Morrison drew his sidearm. 45 caliber pistol against 80 rifles. He killed 2 Germans before they shot him 14 times. December 17th, 2 positions fell. Corporal James Chen, north perimeter. Private Danny Wilson, eastern perimeter. Same pattern. Both followed doctrine. Both fired until their weapons jammed. Both died. Chen's body was recovered that evening. 19 bullet wounds. Wilson's body wasn't recovered for 3 days. The Germans had overrun his position so completely that American forces couldn't reach it until the line stabilized. December 18th, 3 more positions. Sergeant Thomas Parker tried something different. When his barrel approached critical temperature, he attempted to change it mid-engagement, standard barrel. Change procedure took 4 minutes. Parker tried to do it in 2. He was removing the glowing barrel, bare hands protected only by thin gloves, when German infantry reached his position. They shot him while his weapon was disassembled. His assistant gunner, Private First Class Rodriguez, tried to fight them off with a rifle. Rodriguez survived. Parker didn't. Command response was consistent. Follow doctrine. Conserve ammunition. Fire in short bursts. Wait for the barrel to cool. But doctrine was designed for situations where you had time. Where the enemy gave you breathing room. Where 8 minutes of cooling period didn't mean German infantry in your foxhole. The Germans weren't giving anyone time. They'd identified the weakness. They were exploiting it systematically. And American soldiers were dying because their weapons couldn't sustain fire long enough to stop coordinated assault waves. By December 18th, every machine gunner on the Bastogne perimeter knew the math. 450 rounds equals death. You could be the best gunner in the army. You could have perfect discipline, perfect aim, perfect tactics. Didn't matter. At 450 rounds, your weapon would fail. And when your weapon failed, you died. Frank Russo grew up in Detroit, Michigan. His father owned Russo & Sons Garage on Gratiot Avenue, specialized in engine repair, cooling systems, radiators, the kind of work that required understanding heat dissipation, metal expansion, failure points under stress. Frank started working in the garage at age 12. By 16, he could diagnose an overheating engine by sound. By 20, he could rebuild a seized engine in 6 hours. His father taught him one principle: every machine has a limit. Good mechanics find the workaround. When a Ford V8 overheated, you didn't wait for it to cool. You found the problem. Clogged radiator, broken water pump, cracked block. You improvised. You adapted. You fixed it with whatever parts you had available. Russo's father once jury-rigged a 3-radiator cooling system for a delivery truck that kept overheating. Used parts from 2 junked cars and copper pipe from a demolished building. It worked. The truck ran for five more years. Russo was drafted May 1943, infantry basic training at Camp Toccoa, Georgia. The Army wanted him for Airborne. He failed jump training. Ear injury, couldn't equalize pressure. The injury disqualified him from parachute operations, but not from combat. The 101st assigned him to the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment as an armorer. Weapons maintenance, not combat jumps. He worked on rifles, machine guns, mortars, cleaned them, repaired them, signed the maintenance logs that said these weapons were combat ready. Russo arrived at Bastogne December 7, 1944. The Germans surrounded the town December 20th, but the German assault had started earlier, probing attacks, testing American defenses. Russo worked in the maintenance tent, repaired weapons, replaced parts, listened to the gunners talk about barrel overheating, about jams, about the 450-round death sentence. December 14th, Russo watched Sergeant Eddie Morrison's position get overrun. He was 200 yards away, carrying ammunition to another position. He saw Morrison's gun stop firing, saw the barrel glowing red in the early morning darkness. Saw Morrison draw his pistol, heard the gunfire. Morrison was dead before Russo could reach him. That evening, Russo examined Morrison's destroyed M1919. The barrel was warped, expanded from heat stress. The weapon hadn't malfunctioned. It had performed exactly as designed. But it had been designed for different conditions. Tank mounting, vehicle support, not infantry foxholes against wave assaults. Russo measured the barrel's temperature points, calculated expansion rates. The M1919's barrel reached critical temperature at 450 rounds. After that, cooling took 8 to 10 minutes. But proper cooling required removing the barrel, a 4-minute process. Threading the barrel out, waiting for it to cool, threading a new barrel in, timing the headspace, testing the function. 4 minutes of detailed work, impossible under fire. What Russo understood, what the Army didn't seem to understand, was that the M1919 wasn't designed wrong. It was being used wrong. The Army had taken a vehicle-mounted weapon system, given it to infantry, and wondered why it kept failing in sustained combat. It was like taking a truck engine designed for smooth highway driving and running it at maximum RPM continuously. The engine wasn't flawed. The application was. December 16th evening, 3 destroyed M1919 machine guns sat in the maintenance tent. Recovered from overrun positions, each had spare barrels, standard issue. But spare barrels were useless if you couldn't change them during combat. Russo counted available barrels, 8 total, all perfectly functional, all completely useless under the current system. He examined the barrel change mechanism, thread lock, timing pin, carrying handle mount. The system was designed for depot-level maintenance, not field combat, not soldiers with frozen hands and German infantry at 100 yards. The Army had created a weapon that worked perfectly in controlled conditions and failed catastrophically in actual combat. Russo looked at the salvaged German equipment in the corner of the tent, a destroyed SD period, KFZ period 251 half-track. German weapon mounts. He'd noticed something about German machine gun positions. The MG-42 used quick-change barrels. German doctrine emphasized sustained fire with rapid barrel swaps. 5 to 7 seconds. The German gunner could maintain almost continuous fire by swapping barrels before they reached critical temperature. The German system acknowledged reality. Sustained fire required multiple barrels and fast changes. The American system pretended you could fire in short bursts and wait for cooling periods that combat didn't allow. Russo made a decision that night. A decision that violated Army Regulation 850-67, Field Modification of Weapon Systems, unauthorized changes to ordnance, court-martial offense, possible dishonorable discharge. But 14 men were dead. 14 machine gunners who followed regulations perfectly. The regulations were wrong. The doctrine was wrong. And more men would die if nothing changed. Russo looked at those spare barrels, looked at the German quick-release mount, looked at his tools. He'd fixed overheating engines for 15 years. This was the same problem. Different machine, same solution. Multiple cooling systems, rapid component exchange, improvisation using available materials. His father's voice. Every machine has a limit. Good mechanics find the workaround. He started working at 0200 hours, December 17th. He worked alone. If this failed, if the modification caused catastrophic weapon failure, he wanted no one else responsible. But if it worked, if those spare barrels could be swapped in seconds instead of minutes, maybe the next 14 gunners wouldn't die waiting for metal to cool. December 17th, 0200 hours. Russo worked alone in the maintenance tent. Single kerosene lamp for light. Outside temperature -5 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the tent, maybe 10 degrees warmer. Not enough. His hands were numb despite wool gloves. His breath came in white clouds. The metal parts he worked with were so cold they burned his fingers through the gloves. 3 M1919 barrels lay on the workbench, salvaged from destroyed gun positions. Each barrel was 24 inches long, weighed 13 pounds, threaded at the base for receiver mounting. Standard Army issue. Standard Army problem. These barrels were identical to the ones that had failed Morrison, Chen, Wilson, Parker. Good barrels. Just impossible to change fast enough to matter. Next to the barrels, parts from the destroyed German half-track. Quick-release pin assembly from an MG-42 mount. Spring mechanism from the vehicle's cargo hatch. Hardened steel track link. Wire from German communications cable. Russo had been collecting these parts for 3 days, not entirely sure why. Now he knew. He started with the M1919's standard barrel lock assembly. Removed it from a spare receiver. The mechanism was elegant but slow. Thread the barrel into the receiver. Align the timing pin. Lock the carrying handle bracket. Tighten the lock ring. Total time, with practice, 3 to 4 minutes. Under fire, with shaking hands and incoming rounds, maybe never. Parker had died trying. Russo measured the German quick-release pin, 8 millimeters diameter. The M1919 receiver required 9.5 millimeters. He needed an adapter sleeve, something to fill the gap. Something hardened enough to withstand firing stress. The tank track link was hardened steel, designed to handle the weight and torque of a tracked vehicle. It would work if he could shape it correctly. He didn't have a lathe, didn't have a drill press, didn't have proper tools. He had a file, a hacksaw, and frozen fingers. He started filing. The steel fought back. Hardened steel didn't want to be shaped by hand tools. His arms ached after 5 minutes. After 10 minutes, his shoulders burned. After 20 minutes, his hands were bleeding inside the gloves. Small cuts from the file slipping. The blood made his grip uncertain. He kept working. 40 minutes of filing. The adapter sleeve fit. 8 millimeter inner diameter for the German pin. 9.5 millimeter outer diameter for the M1919 receiver. The tolerance was tight. Maybe too tight. If the fit was too snug, the pin wouldn't release under stress. If too loose, the barrel could shift during firing. He tested it. Inserted the pin through the sleeve into the receiver mount. The fit was exact. 0.03 of an inch clearance. Perfect for what he needed. Next problem. The pin needed to lock under firing tension, but release instantly when triggered. The standard M1919 used a threaded lock ring. Turn the ring 6 full rotations to secure. Turn 6 rotations to release. Total time, 90 seconds minimum. Russo needed something that locked and released in one motion. The German MG-42 used a spring-loaded cam pin. Pushed to lock, pulled to release, 1 second each direction. He adapted the spring from the half-track's cargo hatch, coiled steel designed to hold 200 pounds of upward pressure. He cut it down, reformed it to fit the receiver housing. The spring would keep tension on the locking pin. The pin would seat into a notch in the barrel base. Firing pressure would force the barrel back against the pin. The spring tension would keep everything locked. To release, pull a lever that compressed the spring and freed the pin. The barrel would slide out. The lever came from an M1919 Garand operating rod spring. Russo bent it into an L shape, welded it to the pin assembly using a portable acetylene torch. The weld was rough, barely adequate, but it held. He tested the mechanism. Insert barrel. Pin locks automatically under spring tension. Pull lever. Pin releases. Barrel slides free. 3 seconds. Not fast enough. He practiced. 2.5 seconds. Better. 2 seconds. Close. But the test was static. No firing stress, no recoil, no heat. The modification might hold during dry cycling and fail catastrophically during actual firing. The pin could shear. The spring could break. The barrel could come loose during recoil and fly backward into Russo's face. Or the mechanism could work perfectly and save lives. No way to know without live fire testing. Russo couldn't test fire. Firing would alert command to the unauthorized modification. Would draw German artillery fire. Would waste ammunition they couldn't replace. The only test would be combat. He built a test rig instead. Used logs and sandbags to simulate the gun mount. Dry cycled the mechanism. Insert barrel. Lock, release, remove. Insert fresh barrel. Lock. He repeated the sequence 50 times. First attempt, 14 seconds. The mechanism worked, but his hands fumbled. 10th attempt, 9 seconds. Muscle memory developing. 30th attempt, 7 seconds. 50th attempt, 6 seconds. The mechanism held. The pin never sheared during dry cycling. The spring never broke. The barrel seated consistently. Whether it would hold under firing stress was unknown. Whether it would hold when the barrel was glowing orange and Russo's hands were shaking and Germans were at 100 yards was the only question that mattered. 5:30 hours. Russo finished. 3 modified M1919 receivers, 3 sets of spare barrels, 9 barrels total, 3 per gun. Each gun could theoretically fire 1,350 rounds before running out of fresh barrels. 3 times the standard capability, if the modification worked, if the pins didn't shear, if Russo didn't die testing an unauthorized weapons system that violated every ordnance regulation in the Army manual. He wrapped the spare barrels in wool blankets. The metal was so cold it would crack if heated too quickly. The blankets would insulate them, let them warm gradually. He carried the modified gun to the eastern perimeter, his assigned position, the foxhole where Sergeant Eddie Morrison had died 3 days earlier. The ground was frozen. Russo's breath came hard. The gun weighed 31 pounds. The spare barrels added another 26 pounds. His shoulders ached. He didn't care. 6:30 hours. Russo positioned the modified M1919 in the foxhole. Set the 2 spare barrels within arm's reach, left side, wrapped in blankets. His assistant gunner arrived 10 minutes later. Private Danny Sullivan, 19 years old, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 3rd month with the 101st. Sullivan's job was to feed ammunition belts, spot targets, take over the gun if Russo was killed. Sullivan looked at the spare barrels, looked at the modified receiver. "Sarge, why do those barrels have different handles?" "Improvised cooling system," Russo said. "You'll see. Command approve this?" "Not yet." Sullivan stared at him. "You modified your gun without authorization?" "Yes." "That's a court-martial offense. So is letting Germans kill Americans because we're too stupid to fix a broken system." Sullivan didn't respond. He fed the first ammunition belt into the receiver. 250 rounds, linked .30 caliber. They waited. The morning was quiet. Fog rolled across the frozen ground. Russo could see maybe 300 yards. Beyond that, white nothing. Somewhere in that white nothing, Germans were preparing to probe American defenses, testing for weak points, counting seconds until machine guns jammed. 12 hours. Movement at 400 yards. Russo saw shapes in the fog. 30 infantry. German probe attack. Standard pattern. They advanced in short rushes. Move 20 yards. Drop. Move again. Testing American response. Measuring fire discipline. Looking for the machine gun positions that would defend this sector. Range. 400 yards. 375. 350. Russo held fire. Let them close. At 300 yards, he opened fire. 6-second burst. 45 rounds. The gun hammered. Tracers reached out. 2 Germans fell. The others hit cover. Standard response. They knew where Russo's gun was now. They'd marked his position. The next wave would target him specifically. 15 seconds of silence. Russo watched. The Germans moved again. Coordinating, preparing. He fired again. 8-second burst, 60 rounds. 3 more Germans fell. The others scattered, looking for cover that didn't exist. The field was flat, open. The only cover was distance, and the Germans were closing that distance with every rush. 105 rounds fired. The barrel was warm but functional. Russo had maybe 345 rounds before critical temperature. Before the jam that killed Morrison. The Germans knew this. They were counting. They'd done this 14 times. They knew exactly when American machine guns would fail. Third German rush. 12 soldiers advanced during Russo's pause. They'd calculated his pattern. Burst, pause, then extended pause for barrel cooling. They'd advanced during that extended pause, standard tactic. It had worked 14 times. Russo fired again. 10-second burst, 75 rounds. 4 Germans fell. The advance stalled. But now Russo had fired 180 rounds. He had 270 rounds before the jam. The Germans were at 250 yards, close enough to assault during his cooling period. Fourth rush. The Germans synchronized. All 30 remaining soldiers advanced simultaneously. They weren't probing anymore. This was assault. They expected Russo's gun to fall silent in the next 60 seconds. Expected him to stop firing. Expected him to wait helplessly while his barrel cooled and they closed the distance. Russo fired. Sustained burst, 15 seconds, 110 rounds. 5 Germans fell. The gun was heating rapidly. Sullivan watched the barrel. "Sarge, you're at 290 rounds. You're going to seize the barrel." Russo kept firing. 300 rounds, 350, 400. The barrel was glowing dull red, visible even in daylight. 420 rounds, 440. Sullivan grabbed Russo's shoulder. "Sarge, stop! You're at critical." 450 rounds, the point where Morrison's gun had jammed, the point where Chen's gun had jammed. the point where 14 machine gunners had died. Russo released the trigger. The Germans saw the gun go silent. They charged. 25 soldiers, 200 yards, full sprint. They had 45 seconds before they reached the foxhole. Standard pattern. They'd done this 14 times. The American gun was jammed. The position was finished. Sullivan stared at the advancing Germans. "We're dead." "No," Russo said. "Watch this." He pulled the release lever. The spring-loaded pin compressed. The barrel unlocked. He grasped the carrying handle with his left hand, his right hand supporting the receiver. The barrel slid out. 7 seconds from lever pull to barrel removal. The metal was glowing orange. Heat radiated from it. Russo set it in the snow. The snow hissed. Steam rose. Sullivan's eyes went wide. Holy shit. Russo grabbed the first spare barrel, aligned it with the receiver, pushed it forward. The pin locked automatically. Total time, 8 seconds. Barrel swap complete. He grabbed the charging handle, chambered the first round, aimed at the advancing Germans. They were at 150 yards, still running, still expecting the American gun to be dead. Russo opened fire. The Germans were in the open. No cover, full sprint, perfect targets. He fired a sustained burst. 20 seconds, 150 rounds. The fresh barrel was cold. No heat stress, no expansion. The gun functioned here perfectly. 10 Germans fell. The others hit the ground, tried to retreat. Russo kept firing. Another burst, 80 rounds. 4 more Germans fell. The remaining 11 ran. Full retreat back to the tree line. The assault had broken. Sullivan sat in the foxhole, mouth open. "You just changed barrels in the middle of a firefight." 7 seconds, Russo said. "Need to get it down to 5. "Command know you modified the gun?" "Not yet. They're gonna court-martial you. Maybe. But we're alive." Sullivan looked at the retreating Germans, looked at the barrel still steaming in the snow, looked at Russo. "Sarge, you just did something I've never seen. You fired through the jam point. How many rounds?" 530. That's impossible. The M1919 jams at 450. Not anymore. Word spread fast. 30 minutes later, Captain James Whitmore arrived at Russo's position. Company commander. 29 years old, West Point graduate. He'd watched the engagement from the command post 200 yards away. Had seen Russo's gun maintain fire through the point where it should have jammed. Had seen the barrel swap, had seen the German assault break. Whitmore examined the modified gun. The quick-release pin, the spring mechanism, the spare barrels. He asked 3 questions. "Is it safe?" "Don't know," Russo said. "Worked once." "Is it reliable?" "Don't know. Need more testing." "Can you teach it?" "Yes." Whitmore looked at the retreating Germans, looked at the 14 destroyed M1919 positions that had fallen in 3 days, looked at Russo. "Sergeant, you violated Regulation 850-67. Field modification of ordnance without authorization. That's a court-martial offense." "Yes, sir." "You also just held a position that should have been overrun, using a weapon system that shouldn't exist." Whitmore paused. "You've got until the next attack to make 2 more. If this works, we're putting them on every M1919 on the perimeter. If it fails, we'll both face court-martial together." "Yes, sir." "Get to work, Sergeant." December 17th afternoon. Russo worked with 2 other armorers, Corporal Miguel Rodriguez, San Antonio, Texas, Private First Class David Chen, Sacramento, California. Both had watched Russo's engagement that morning. Both had seen the barrel swap. Both understood what it meant. Russo showed them the modification. The quick release pin, the spring mechanism, the adapter sleeve from German tank parts. He explained the geometry, how the spring maintained tension, how the lever compressed the spring and freed the pin, how the barrel could be removed in 7 seconds instead of 4 minutes. Rodriguez held the modified receiver, studied the pin assembly. "This is going to get us court-martialed." "Probably," Russo said. "Or it's going to save the aid station." "Also probably." Chen examined the spare barrels. "How many times can you swap before the mechanism fails?" "Don't know," Russo said. "I dry cycled it 50 times, held every time. But that's not the same as combat stress. What happens if the pin shears during firing? Barrel flies backward. Probably kills the gunner." Chen nodded slowly. "But if it works, we can fire 1,350 rounds instead of 450. "Yes. That's 3 times longer than any M1919 in the European theater." "Yes." Rodriguez set down the receiver. "Show us how to build it." They worked until 1800 hours, built 2 more modified M1919 systems. Each modification took 90 minutes. They used salvaged German parts, American tank components, wire, improvised springs. Russo's hands were bleeding. Chen's fingers were frostbitten. Rodriguez burned his palm on the acetylene torch. They didn't stop. By 1800 hours, 3 modified M1919 machine guns existed. 3 positions that could theoretically maintain sustained fire through German wave assaults. If the modifications held, if the pins didn't shear, if Russo hadn't just created 3 weapons that would kill their own gunners. Captain Whitmore assigned positions. Russo, center of the eastern perimeter. Rodriguez, left flank. Chen, right flank. 3 modified guns covering 600 yards of defensive line. Standard M1919 positions filled the gaps. 6 positions total. 3 experimental, 3 standard. By nightfall, December 17th, the eastern perimeter had become a live-fire test range for unauthorized weapon modifications. December 18th was quiet. German probes only. Small formations. 10 to 15 infantry. Testing. American response. Russo fired twice. Short bursts. Didn't need to swap barrels. Neither did Rodriguez or Chen. The Germans were planning something. Russo could feel it. The probes were too systematic, too measured. They were gathering intelligence, counting American positions, measuring fire discipline, preparing for something bigger. December 19th. 7:42 hours. The something bigger arrived. 200 German infantry emerged from the tree line 400 yards east. Not a probe, not a test. This was coordinated assault. 2 full companies, supporting mortar fire. Precise timing. The objective was obvious. Break through the eastern perimeter, reach the aid station, split American defenses, create a corridor for follow-on forces. Russo counted the enemy. 200 infantry organized in 3 waves. First wave, 50 soldiers. Second wave, 70. Third wave, 80. Reserves, 60 infantry holding at the tree line. The Germans had learned. They'd watched American machine gun positions for 3 days. They knew the pattern. 450 rounds to jam. They knew the timing. 90 seconds of fire before cooling period. They knew the weakness. American gunners waited helplessly while metal cooled and Germans advanced. The assault plan was simple. First wave draws American fire. Americans burn through ammunition, heat their barrels. Second wave advances during American cooling pause. Third wave assaults when American barrels are seized. Reserves exploit the breakthrough. The plan had worked 14 times. The Germans expected it would work again. 7:40 hours. German artillery barrage, mortars, 81mm rounds, 30 seconds of suppression fire. Russo pressed himself into the foxhole. Sullivan covered his head. Explosions walked across the perimeter. Frozen earth erupted. Shrapnel whistled overhead. The barrage stopped. Silence. Then the whistle. German infantry advancing. First wave, 50 soldiers. Range 400 yards. The standard M1919 positions opened fire. Short bursts. Conserving ammunition, following doctrine. The Germans advanced to 350 yards. Hit cover. The American guns fell silent. Barrel cooling. The Germans had expected this. They'd counted on it. Second wave. 70 soldiers. They advanced during the American cooling pause. Range 300 yards. This time Russo opened fire. Sustained burst, 80 rounds in 10 seconds. 4 Germans fell. The others hit cover. Surprised. They'd expected sporadic fire, not sustained volume from a single position. Russo kept firing. 120 rounds, 180, 240. The standard M1919 positions went silent. Barrels approaching critical temperature. The Germans saw this, recognized the pattern, prepared for final assault. Third wave. 80 soldiers. They advanced expecting American fire to stop, expecting barrel jams, expecting the 450-round limit that had killed 14 American positions. Range 250 yards. Russo reached 450 rounds. The critical point. The death point. Sullivan grabbed his shoulder. "Sarge, you're at jam point." Russo kept firing. 460 rounds. 480. 500. The barrel was glowing red, visible in daylight. Sullivan's eyes went wide. "How are you still firing?" 520 rounds. The barrel was beyond critical temperature. The metal should have warped. The gun should have jammed. But the barrel was fresh. Russo had swapped it at 200 rounds before heat stress accumulated. The Germans didn't know this. They expected the gun to be jammed, expected the position to be defenseless. Instead, Russo's fire intensified. 540 rounds. 560. Germans fell. 8, 12, 15. The advance stalled. The third wave hit cover. They couldn't understand why American fire hadn't stopped. Their intelligence said 450 rounds. Their experience said 450 rounds. 14 successful assaults said 450 rounds. But this gun was still firing. Russo reached 600 rounds. The barrel was critical now. Too hot. He pulled the release lever. 7 seconds. Barrel removed, steaming in the snow. Fresh barrel seated, pin locked. He resumed firing. No pause, no gap. Continuous suppression. The Germans saw this, saw the barrel swap, understood finally. The American weapon system had changed. Rodriguez executed his first barrel swap at 420 rounds, 6 seconds. His position maintained continuous fire through the German third wave assault. 8 Germans fell to Rodriguez's fire. The left flank held. Chen's position on the right flank. He reached 430 rounds, pulled his release lever. The pin stuck. Spring tension too tight. He pulled harder. The pin sheared, snapped clean. The barrel was locked in place. No way to remove it. No way to swap. Chen's gun had 430 rounds through an overheating barrel. He fired anyway. 450 rounds. The gun jammed. Barrel seized. Chen drew his pistol. Germans were at 100 yards, coming fast. Chen fired his .45, killed 2 Germans. They shot him 17 times. His position was overrun in 40 seconds. The modification had failed. The pin had sheared. Chen died because Russo's improvised system wasn't perfect. The right flank collapsed. but the center held. Russo's gun, 900 rounds fired, 3 barrel swaps, 7 seconds each. Germans couldn't advance through the sustained fire. The second wave was pinned. The third wave was broken. Reserves at the tree line didn't commit. They'd watched 2 waves get destroyed, watched impossible fire from American positions, watched barrel swaps that shouldn't exist. They retreated. Rodriguez's position, 800 rounds fired, 2 barrel swaps. His section of the line held, left flank secure. The assault broke. 800 hours. 140 Germans killed or wounded. The eastern perimeter held. Cost: Chen dead, his position overrun. 4 standard M1919 positions overrun, following the previous pattern. But Russo's and Rodriguez's modified positions held. Impossible fire. Impossible duration. The modification worked. Mostly. Captain Whitmore arrived at Russo's position at 0830. Examined the 3 spent barrels, counted the empty ammunition cans, did the math. "Sergeant, how many rounds did you fire?" 900, sir." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir." Whitmore looked at Chen's overrun position. "Private Chen is dead." "Yes, sir. Pin sheared during barrel swap. Modification failure." "Your modification killed him." "Yes, sir." "Your modification also saved 40 men in the aid station. Held the center line. Broke a 200-man assault." Whitmore paused. "Chen's death is on you, Sergeant. But so are 40 lives saved." Russo said nothing. "Colonel Sink wants to see you at 1600 hours. Bring your modified weapons. He's deciding whether to court-martial you or authorize modifications for the entire regiment." That night, December 19th to 20th, Russo worked with 4 armorers. Built 23 modified M1919 systems, used salvaged parts, improvised components, worked through darkness in -10-degree cold. His hands bled. His fingers went numb. He thought about Chen, about the pin shearing, about modification failure, about responsibility. By dawn December 20th, 23 modified M1919 machine guns were positioned across the eastern perimeter, each capable of 1,350 rounds, each capable of holding against wave assaults, each carrying the risk that killed Chen. Russo signed the maintenance logs, watched the gunners walk to their positions, hoped the pins would hold, hoped Chen's death wouldn't be repeated 23 times. December 20th, 0600 hours. German intelligence officers studied the previous day's assault failure. Reports from survivors, radio intercepts, observations from forward observers. The conclusion was unanimous. American machine gun positions on the eastern perimeter had maintained impossible sustained fire. Something had changed. One German report stated, "American defensive positions firing continuously through standard suppression duration. Estimated 600 to 900 rounds from single weapons. Inconsistent with known M1919 capabilities." Another report. "Observed barrel exchange during active engagement. Estimate 7 to 10 seconds. Significantly faster than intelligence assessments." The German conclusion was wrong, but logical. Americans had received resupply of new weapon systems, heavy machine guns, maybe water-cooled Brownings. The Germans didn't consider the alternative, that Americans had modified existing weapons using salvaged German parts and Detroit ingenuity. German tactical adaptation was immediate. Avoid the eastern perimeter. Bypass Russo's sector entirely. Attack from the south where standard M1919 positions still held the line. The tactical shift delayed German breakthrough attempts by 24 hours. 24 hours meant Patton's Third Army advanced 15 more miles toward Bastogne. 15 miles closer to relief. The modification had changed German planning. December 20th. 3 German probes against the eastern perimeter. Small formations. 15 to 20 infantry. Testing. All repelled. Modified M1919 positions fired average 400 rounds per engagement. 0 positions lost. Germans withdrew each time. They'd learned. Russo's sector was too costly. The mathematics no longer favored assault, but the south perimeter was different. Standard M1919 positions. Standard limitations, 450 rounds to jam. December 20th. Germans hit the southern line hard. 60 infantry, coordinated assault. 2 American positions fell. Same pattern. Barrels seized, gunners killed. The modification hadn't spread fast enough. Colonel Robert Sink, Commander 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, reviewed December 19th combat reports that evening. Read the casualty lists. 14 positions lost over 3 days using standard weapons. 2 positions lost December 19th using standard weapons. 3 positions held using modified weapons. 1 modified position lost due to mechanical failure. The statistics were clear. Modified positions had 25% casualty rate. Standard positions had 70% casualty rate. Sink faced a decision. The modification violated regulations. Chen had died because of modification failure. But 40 men in the aid station survived because the modification worked. Russo should face court-martial for unauthorized ordnance modification. But Russo's innovation had saved the regiment. Sink made his choice. December 20th, 2200 hours. Sergeant Russo, you are hereby authorized to modify every M1919 in this regiment. Work through the night. Every gun on this perimeter gets your quick change system by dawn. If we survive Bastogne, I'll defend you at the court-martial. If we don't survive, regulations won't matter. Russo worked December 20th through 21st. 4 armorers, 16-hour shifts, modified 47 M1919 machine guns, used every salvaged German part available. Half-track mounts, spring assemblies, wire, tank track links. Each modification took 90 minutes. Russo's hands bled continuously, fingers frostbitten, shoulders cramped. Didn't stop. Thought about Chen, about 14 dead gunners, about the next wave, about whether improvised pins would hold or shear. December 21st. Germans attacked the eastern perimeter again. 120 infantry, coordinated assault, supporting mortars, 8 modified M1919 positions on the line. The Germans expected breakthrough, expected American guns to jam at 450 rounds, expected to reach the aid station. They were wrong. 8 modified positions fired average 900 rounds. Sustained fire through 3 German waves. Barrel swaps executed under fire. 7 seconds average. Germans casualties, 43 killed, estimated 30 wounded. American casualties, 2 positions damaged by mortar fire, 0 positions overrun by infantry assault. 0 gunners killed by weapon seizure. The eastern perimeter held absolutely. German assault commander reported, American defensive fire sustained beyond possible duration, unable to exploit weapon cooling periods. Recommend avoid eastern sector. Casualties unsustainable. That recommendation changed everything. Germans stopped attacking Russo's sector, shifted focus to southern and western perimeters where standard M1919 positions remained. But word spread. Other units requested modified weapons. Armorers from different regiments visited Russo's maintenance tent, learned the modification, built their own. December 22nd, 31 modified M1919 positions across the 101st Airborne. December 23rd, 42 positions. December 24th, 67 positions. The modification spread unit to unit. No official authorization, no written orders, just whispered conversations and desperate armorers building improved weapons because soldiers were dying and regulations weren't saving them. Combat results. December 21st through 25th. Modified positions. Fired average 1,200 rounds per engagement. Casualty rate 15%. Most casualties from artillery and mortar fire, not infantry assault. Standard positions. Fired average 380 rounds per engagement. Casualty rate 44%. Most casualties from weapon seizure during German assault. The numbers were absolute. Modified weapons saved lives. But command couldn't officially acknowledge it. Authorization would mean accepting that regulations were wrong, that doctrine was flawed, that an enlisted mechanic from Detroit had solved a problem that Army ordnance hadn't even admitted existed. December 26th, Patton's Third Army broke through to Bastogne. Siege lifted. Germans withdrew. The 101st counted casualties. 43 machine gun positions lost during the siege. 28 were standard M1919 positions. 15 were modified positions. Most modified position casualties came from artillery, not weapon failure. Conservative estimate, modified positions prevented collapse of 18 defensive sectors. 18 sectors averaging 15 soldiers per sector. 270 American soldiers survived because positions held that should have fallen. January 1945. Army Ordnance Command sent investigators to Bastogne, examined modified weapons, interrogated Russo, unauthorized modifications, violation of Regulation 850-67, field changes to ordnance without engineering approval, potential court-martial, dishonorable discharge, prison time. Colonel Sink testified. Sergeant Russo's modification saved my regiment. His innovation prevented German breakthrough. His weapons held the line when standard equipment failed. 23 other officers testified. Unit commanders whose positions survived because of modified weapons. The statistics were presented. Casualty rate comparisons, defensive success rates, lives saved, Ordnance Command faced political disaster, court-martial the man who saved Bastogne. The press would destroy them. The compromise was quiet. No court-martial, but no commendation. Russo received Bronze Star for meritorious service during combat operations. Citation made no mention of the modification. No mention of innovation. No mention of 47 weapons modified. No mention of 270 lives saved, just generic language about duty and service. But Ordnance Command studied Russo's design, took measurements, analyzed the quick change mechanism, tested it. Never officially adopted it, never formally rejected it, just quietly incorporated similar features into later weapon systems. Modified 1919 weapons remained in service through May 1945. Unofficial policy. No documentation. Plausible deniability. Units requested modifications. Armorers built them. Command pretended not to notice. By war's end, estimated 200 modified M1919 machine guns existed in European theater. Zero official documentation. All deniable. Korean War, 1950 through 1953. M1919 still in service. Some units discovered weapons with quick-change barrel systems. No documentation of origin. No record of who developed the modification. Soldiers using the system had no idea a Detroit mechanic invented it at Bastogne. They just knew the guns worked better than standard issue. 1952. Army adopted M1919, a 6 model. Featured quick-change barrel system, design remarkably similar to Russo's improvised modification. Official documentation credited engineering analysis and field testing. No mention of Russo, no mention of Bastogne, no mention of December 1944. Modern weapons followed the pattern. M2 Browning 50 caliber, quick change barrel. M240 machine gun, quick change barrel. M249 saw, quick change barrel. Every modern American machine gun used rapid barrel exchange. The principle Russo proved at Bastogne became standard. But Russo's name appeared nowhere. Frank Russo returned to Detroit, May 1945. Reopened Russo & Sons garage on Gratiot Avenue. Worked on cars, fixed overheating engines, rebuilt radiators. Never talked about Bastogne, never mentioned the modification, never sought recognition. When people asked about the war, I was a mechanic, fixed machines that weren't working right. When pressed for details, nothing special, just did my job. His Bronze Star citation hung in the garage office. Customers occasionally asked about it. Russo would shrug. They gave those to everyone. One customer, a Korean War veteran, brought in a truck with cooling problems. 1962. While Russo worked, the veteran mentioned serving with the 2nd Infantry Division. Mentioned using M1919 machine guns with quick change barrels. Some genius invented that system. Saved our lives more than once. Never knew who designed it. Russo didn't respond. Just fixed the truck's radiator. 3-hour job. Charged $40. The veteran left happy. Never knew the mechanic who fixed his truck had invented the system that saved his life in Korea. Frank Russo died October 1987. 71 years old, heart attack, working under a Chevrolet in his garage. Died doing what he'd done for 50 years, fixing machines. The obituary in the Detroit Free Press mentioned World War II service. Bronze Star, 42 years operating the family garage. 2 paragraphs. No mention of Bastogne, no mention of modified weapons, no mention of 270 lives saved. His funeral drew 38 people, family mostly. 3 war buddies, no military honor guard, no 21-gun salute, just a quiet service at Holy Redeemer Cemetery. The priest didn't know about December 19th, didn't know about barrel swaps under fire, didn't know about Germans stopped by impossible weapons. Rodriguez attended, 70 years old, flew from San Antonio. He stood at the grave after everyone left, looked at the headstone. Frank Russo, beloved husband and father, World War II veteran. Rodriguez added his own words quietly. You saved 270 of us. They should have put that on the stone. National Infantry Museum, Fort Benning, Georgia. Display case near the World War II section. M1919 Browning machine gun. Placard reads, used during Siege of Bastogne, December 1944. Features field improvised quick change barrel modification. Small print at bottom. Origin of modification unknown. Became basis for modern quick change barrel systems. No name, no Detroit mechanic, no Russo. Just a modified gun that saved lives nobody remembers. That's how innovation actually happens in war. Not through laboratories, not through committees. Through mechanics in frozen foxholes who refuse to watch friends die because regulations say they can't fix broken systems. Frank Russo never received official recognition. Never got his name in Army records. Never saw a citation that mentioned his innovation. But 270 soldiers came home from Bastogne. And every modern American machine gun uses the principle he proved with salvaged parts and bleeding hands. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to share these forgotten stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing one forgotten hero every week. Drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from? Texas? Germany? Are you a veteran? A mechanic? Let us know you're here Frank Russo deserves to be remembered. You're helping make sure he isn't forgotten. Thank you for watching. Thank you for keeping their memories alive.